panel. I'm going to let Jasmine do the introduction, but I do want to celebrate this. Jasmine Sabri, one of my favorite artists in the whole world, next to Rosalind, and Miss Jasmine is just named the executive director of the Camden Fireworks Art Gallery and Artist Studio. So, I don't know how she's going to do it. She's all over the world all the time. She never stops moving, but she's not dropped any balls yet, so I'm sure she'll be just as successful with this as everything else. So, with that, I'm gonna leave this to Jasmine Malloy, who is a dear friend of mine, former member of the African American Cultural Committee for the Montclair Art Museum, of which I was the chairperson for 8 years. And yeah, Jasmine was instrumental in helping with a lot of things done there. Art enthusiast and sometimes artist, curator, and she's going to lead this conversation. So I'm going to figure out that. Is that already going?
Should be good.
Okay. And Jasmine's going to do the introduction. And thank you again.
Again, welcome everyone. How's everyone this evening? Excellent. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our lovely panel. First to my left or right would be Jasmine Sabri, who was born in New Jersey. She is based in the greater Philadelphia area. She received her Bachelor's of Art from Clark Atlanta University in HBCU. And she studied art and journalism, and then she went on to become an art educator, which we all love, right? So then she returned to Boston University to receive her Master's of Art in Education, and then went to Pennsylvania Academy for Fine Arts, where she received her MFA. And then she was also the recipient of the Clark Atlanta University Art Guild Award, the Linda Laura Puglisi Award for Excellence in Art Education, among a plethora of things. But I met this very lovely young lady at the Montclair Art Museum's African American Cultural Committee, where she was our second fellow. So without further ado, I give you Jasmine Sabri. Our next person is Stephanie Davis. Everybody, Daniels, thank you. Please clap it up for her. Now, Stephanie Daniel, as a young child, she was exposed to art in many forms. She grew up around the Boston area, and her mom and her aunt made sure that they took her to local galleries, the big museums, and the art festivals as well. She was raised to appreciate art, and original paintings hung on the living room walls in her home. That inspired her to be a curator of her own collection, and she started to share her gifts and creative talents and became an art educator in the Philadelphia School District. She received her Master's of Science and degree in art history from St. Joseph's University, and she is a collector of African American art, and she has a natural passion of considering that in her background. She has a part in this collection as well, so I welcome Stephanie Daniel. I have the pleasure of having the prize curation of the Moody Jones collection, Mr. Dylan Moody, that's on the panel as well. He represents the Moody Jones collection, curated by Dr. Robin Jones, who is the co-founder of the gallery and an esteemed patron of the arts, actively contributes to its growth and development, and she plays a pivotal role in developing the author series at the gallery in Glenside, Pennsylvania. Her husband, Adrian J. Moody, is also a passionate collector. He's a gallerist and a consultant known for his keen eye for the talent that they bring into their collection. He began his career at Holy Cross, and they want to impact the exhibition that provides a platform for artists to connect with a wider audience. Dylan, in his own right, is a curator out here doing video curation for multiple companies, and he will share more about his talents. And then finally, we have Kevin Scriven, Keith Scriven, excuse me. And
most people mess up the last name. You got that perfect.
oh, well, thank you. Now Keith Scriven, he has pop-up galleries all over the place, and he hosts various artists in these pop-up spaces. And for us to have pop-up areas, it's an expense. You know, you have to find the right space, you have to have the right energy, and he creates those energies for those specific artists. So I would like for us to clap up our panel. So firstly, I want to start with Jasleen. Where is the place that you would really love for your art to hang, and why?
That's a big one. I'm like torn. So I, for a long time, have been kind of ruminating on an idea at the Clark Atlanta University Art Museum, just because it would be a full circle moment.
Mm-hmm.
When I got there, my journey to become an art major was very tumultuous. You know, the age-old adage of the starving artist. And so I didn't always have a lot of support in becoming an artist or anything in the arts. And it wasn't until around my junior year at Clark Atlanta University where I had to like take an emergency drawing class for my mental health, that my drawing professor pulled me aside and said, "Why aren't you an art major? What's going on? You're too talented. What's happening?" And that was when the light bulb clicked. And then I studied abroad in Italy, and it completely blew up my world, and exposed me to just the way that art networks, collectors, and communities can create an ecosystem where artists can be successful and supported. And so with all of that, I'm kind of torn because I'm always ruminating on a show at Clark University Art Museum, but I'm also ruminating on a show in Florence, Italy, because both of those institutions were pivotal in my career trajectory.
Thank you. So Stephanie, I have a question for you. When you began collecting art, who was the artist that most inspired you to collect your first piece? And were you able to acquire that artist's piece?
First piece I ever collected was a Jacob Lawrence poster. And the reason I chose it was the Munich Olympics depiction of the 3 Black track and field runners. And I grew up going to track and field events as a child. First time I came to Philadelphia, my grandfather would put us all in the car and we'd come to the Penn Relays, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we did Penn Relays, Millrose Games, BAA, which is Boston Athletic Association. We were track and field enthusiasts. So I can't remember where I bought it, but it was a poster and I loved the flatness of it.
Mm-hmm.
Knew a little bit about Jacob Lawrence. I was in my 20s.
Mm-hmm.
I went to school as a art major. I studied art and art history at Marymount College. I wanted to be an artist, but you know, the work that I liked is very dissimilar from the work that I was doing. But I always knew that Jacob Lawrence was somebody that was well known, and I knew his work. He's somebody that when you see his work, you say, well, that's a Jacob Lawrence. It's very identifiable, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that was my first piece. I didn't frame it for a while because I couldn't afford the frame. But then I got a little cheapy frame after a few months and put it up, and I've since had it reframed. But that was my first piece. I collect art for many reasons. My collection is in the front room in there, but it's, as you see, as you walk around the room, it's very eclectic. Me being from an art background and being an artist, a teaching artist, I don't draw and paint unless I'm showing someone else how to do it. I wish I had time to sit and create something for myself, and now that I'm not, I just retired in June from the School District of Philadelphia, so I do have a little bit more time. But my choices in what I choose to collect are very eclectic, very different. It's what I like, might not be what someone else likes. Doesn't have to be, doesn't have to depict any one particular thing. You know, I do like some abstracts. I like realism as well. But it makes me happy when I get up, walk around my home and see things that I've collected, change them out. You know, other people come into my home and comment on how nice it looks. I like to arrange and rearrange, you know? So, yeah, that's, and from a background of being an artist, going to art school, then going on to get a master's in art education and educating younger people in the school district about being creative. You know, it all seems to come back to me. It all seems to come back to expression. And I express myself by having multiple artists, not any one particular kind, and then moving them around a little bit. And then I also help other people when they're hanging art in their homes. They ask me to help, you know, because either they know I'm knowledgeable about it or they know that I'm capable of knowing what looks good where. You know, and I think that comes from having an art background, not just from collecting, but having an art background, from going to school and being an art teacher.
Excellent, thank you. So Dylan, you have the esteemed privilege of having parents that have really instilled in you how to collect. What was your first piece?
My first piece was from them. So, and obviously now as I've grown and gotten older, I'm coming to some, you know, I've reached a certain level of success where I'm starting to really look into things myself to purchase, right? I have, within my home, I'll be completely honest, like I have a few things that I bought myself over the years, but the bulk of everything I have in my house is from them. And it's a privilege to be able to, you know, kind of pick and choose from that collection, right? And kind of curate my own collection within that kind of space. So a lot of what I have and what I like I love figurative things, more so than anything else. I love the idea of painting a scene and what that scene really means to you, what kind of energy that brings to you. I'm also like, as of recently, like I'm falling in love with surrealism. I don't know, a lot of people really love that genre, but to me, it's something that is really catching my eye right now. But I would say my first kind of thing or piece that I really fell in love with was, you know, it's hanging up there, artist by Pedro Fuller. A lot of his works I definitely parsed through the collection and picked out a few of those things to hang in my home. But just overall, I think, you know, I'm very happy and privileged to have grown up in that kind of setting. I will say when I was young, we didn't appreciate it between me and my brother. If anything, we thought there was too much stuff in the house. And those late nights, we wake up, need a drink of water, we would find ourselves walking in the hallway and bumping our foot on the statue and being mad about that, right? And indirectly, it's influenced me in terms of what I've grown into professionally, right? I'm not a painter, I'm not a sculptor, but I'm an experiential designer where I work with, you know, Fortune 500 companies. They want to activate at a certain event, say the Super Bowl, say the NBA All-Star Weekend, and I work on teams that curate those experiences and how they engage, interact with fans that attend those different events. So I like to call myself an artist, but in a different way, more tangible, more tactile, more physical sort of interaction as opposed to an observational interaction. But I would say all credit to them, right? They definitely informed my taste. I've certainly evolved in and of myself to kind of find my niche and the things that I really like. But I definitely all credit, all power to them.
Excellent. Parents, you've done an amazing job, just saying. So Keith,
Yes.
you do all of these pop-up galleries and spaces. So explain, give me more of a
It may seem like I
explanation.
do a lot of pop-ups and things like that, but what I'm actually doing is just rotating the things I do amongst my own businesses.
Okay.
I have different locations and different places, and I've been an art lover for a long time. My father was in education in the Philadelphia School District, and I remember back in the 70s,
Mhm.
he was the principal at Germantown High School. And one of the things that was happening then was this wave to try to discipline the children in different ways.
Mhm.
The detention at Germantown High School became sending the kids to an after-school program where they were working on murals. And they started painting murals in high schools, and it started to spread.
Mhm.
And I put all this together later. You know, at the moment, I just was experiencing what was going on. But as I look back at it and seen the influence, it really has been a teaching through what I've seen. And to knock it off your question, the pop-ups are really related to, you know, always trying to maximize on a moment.
Mhm.
Artists are doing different things at different times. I myself am an artist, and everything's not hot at the same time. So you pick and choose the moments to feature and try to present something dynamic. It may not be for a monetary gain, it may be for an exposure gain. It may just be for a collaborative gain. So in I was also lucky when I came out of college in 1990, graduated from Penn State University. At that point, I had already been under the tutelage of Oscar C. Robinson,
Mhm.
who was Philadelphia's first Black jeweler.
Mhm.
And there's no lane for us.
Mhm.
The skills I have and the things I've been taught and how I've actually supported the arts is through all of my games in the jewelry craft. So it would be nice to one day know that African Americans can grasp, you know, that lane as well, because we do have some in that jewelry field. But at that time when I was coming along with Oscar, and I graduated college, I wanted to try to step out on my own as a jewelry designer. And I realized, you know, there's no way I can afford the inventory, the material to even begin, you know, and what would a store look like and all of these things. So I lived in Old City, Philadelphia, and at that time, there were a number of artists living in that area. There were reputable art galleries already established there. But what didn't really exist when I came along to that area was like a cohesive movement. So in the 90s, I would definitely say myself was one of the few art galleries that created the movement we know as First Friday today. And a part of this forum here, and this is the result, this is the son of an amazing couple who collects. Well, when we were starting in business, Adrian was someone that I would need to impress. Because at that point, Adrian was just a collector. And he would come into the art galleries and, you know, you would be lucky if you got into a conversation, and Adrian would laugh. He knows. I put hours into him. And Mercer knows the same thing, you know, and to be here today, you know, it's amazing because we kind of like, I too am a figurative person. I realize that only because from those years of starting the art galleries and First Fridays in Old City, I was actually my biggest client. You know, so as we as we were, you know, I would have conversations with myself. And these shows started to come one after the other, and back in that day, we didn't have so much social media. We had Edward Solzansky, remember him? Yeah, yeah, the art critic. I had the skills of my mother who worked she was the administrative assistant for Leon Sullivan. And she came to work for me, you know, her son. But what we did was amazing. It was beyond, you know, documentable.
Right.
And at this point in our lives, I think, in addition to us like serving whatever role we serve and wherever we aspire to like position ourselves in the arts, there's so many opportunities for us to archive. It's beyond a sale. It's beyond a particular artist. It's about a story. It's about the history. It's about how it's the details. And it's not, I will always say it's not the sales come. When you curate for an experience for yourself, for people, you're doing the best you can do for the artist. And when you see what you put together, just like when you walk through here and you see what's been curated, it's impactful. There's so much power in it. And you're not at a sale. You know, there's a history and a whole rooting. So I'm 58 now. I started, I've had 31 years in this business. And I think, you know, quietly, I like to be a quiet kind of person, but I'm excited with what I have on my horizon. I'm excited with all the things that I'm up to. So, and just another real exciting thing about art, and I wasn't trained in art. You know, I have a very keen eye just because I'm interested. But I remember when I opened the art gallery in Old City, I was standing in an empty space and I saw this black guy walk by the front. I said, oh, it was just, oh, okay. And in seconds, I saw him come back, you know, because he saw me. And I went like this and I said, come in. So he came in. He said, oh, is this your place? I said, yeah, I'm just opening. I'm just getting things together. I said, are you an artist? He said, yeah, I am. I said, wow. And he had a portfolio he was carrying. I said, is that your work in that portfolio? He says, yeah, I'm going around the Rosenfeld. And Rosenfeld was like another quiet genius. Like he had everything on lockdown. He knew his business, you know. I said, oh, can I see it? And so he took it out and he showed me. And for so many reasons, it just hit me like right here. This small piece like that, a watercolor. And I was like, damn. So I said, wow. I said, you're going to show that to Richard, huh? He says, yeah, you know. So Richard was also showing a few other African American artists, one of which was an artist named Earl Lewis, who is a great storyteller, illustrator. And, you know, part of this industry too is everyone doesn't get the same moment. Everyone doesn't always get featured. And artists, galleries have favorites and things like that. So Jose wasn't the favorite, but he would, for no reason other than everyone can't be. And so this piece, I said, wow, is that for sale? He says, yeah. I was like, well, how much is it? And he told me how much. I said, can I buy it? He said, you want to buy this? I said, I absolutely want to buy it. And so I bought it. And that was the first original piece of artwork I ever bought. And it was like in the empty space, opening the business, the imagery, that would take too long to explain to you why it was so impactful. But today, that artist 30 years later as a watercolorist is one of our most acclaimed in the country.
Mm-hmm.
Very few Black folks have been inducted into the American Watercolor Society.
Mm-hmm.
That's Jose.
Mhm.
You know,
Fellow art teacher in the school district.
that's right. That's
Mm.
right, Northeast. And, you know, I didn't want to use the name for no reason, but the description speaks for itself, right?
Right.
Phenomenal.
It's phenomenal. And to me, that's what I'm starting to realize what I've been fortunate and blessed with.
Mm-hmm.
You know, these relationships and I guess timing.
Mm-hmm.
Timing.
Excellent. Thank you for that very impactful story. So the reason why we're all here is because we're talking about the ecosystem of the art gallery and whether it really needs to still remain or whether we go from museum to home and there is no intermediary. So I'm going to ask Stephanie, what is your thought on galleries? Do they still need to exist or
Definitely. Not just for the artist, but for the purveyor, for the person who, like me and many other people, want to see what's out there. I don't know any other way, even if no one was purchasing art, even if you had galleries that were. Speaking of galleries, I don't, even if there were no one purchasing, okay?
Mhm.
The galleries need to happen. They need to happen for the sake of the artist, yes. There's a lot of artists though that I know of who don't exhibit in galleries. It's artists to collectors.
Mhm.
Okay, no middle person, no middle thing. And that's great. But galleries are not just there to sell art, in my opinion. Galleries are there, whatever kind of gallery, however large, however small, they're there to view what's out there.
Okay.
Which is why galleries change their walls, take things down, put something else up, whether or not they're selling anything or not. They're there to enjoy,
Mhm.
see? So, artists, a lot of artists probably don't need the gallery, but for me, in my opinion, they have to have galleries, not just to help the artists, but to help those people who, or to be there for people who just want to view what they like,
Mhm.
what's out there,
Mhm.
whether or not you have a particular kind of art that you like. Some galleries tend to show only uh, abstracts, let's say.
Mhm.
And it's abstracts. You might feature an abstract artist for a couple of months, and they bring in another artist, they feature more abstracts. There are galleries like that I know of that do not get a lot of traffic because they're only showing one particular style.
Mhm.
Okay, and that's their choice. But I think that a gallery is very, very necessary for many reasons, and it's not just to support the artist per se. It's not just for that.
Mhm.
It's for other reasons as well. It's for going to see. I have art in my heart, so I'm going to go to a gallery not intending to buy anything
Right.
because I want to see what's out there. I just want to see it. Get ideas compared to something else I may have seen.
Mhm.
And it's coming from a teacher perspective too.
Mhm.
So.
Dylan, as a person whose parents have an art gallery, how has that played into how you curate your home, how you do the digital curation with what you do for your employment?
Um, I would say, for me, I look at galleries as like that connective tissue
Mhm.
between, the artist and the collector. I think it's very important from a gallery perspective. Similar to you in this sense, I'm an artist in my own right, but I wasn't classically trained, right? So I don't come into things with a certain mindset, looking for a certain thing. I don't necessarily always appreciate the ones that you're supposed to appreciate, right? I appreciate what I appreciate. And I think, the beauty of my parents, what they created with their gallery, and sort of how I've come in to really help and sort of structure that, it has really just been an extension into my professional life. And a lot of what I do professionally, right, I take a lot of my conceptual thinking in terms of what I do professionally, and now I apply it to what they're doing within their gallery in terms of curating that experience, right? And I think the gallery to me is also very much a community, right? It's a place for like-minded individuals to gather, but also a place for non-like-minded individuals to gather, right? I think there's a beauty in the sense of like, you can go to a gallery, you can be with another patron who doesn't even speak the same language, right? But you guys can all find this common ground between this artwork. You may not be able to communicate to each other, actually talk to each other, but these paintings create that sort of common ground. And I think, there's a lot of beauty in that. To me, it cuts through a lot of things, especially in this day and age, right? We're in a scary society right now in a lot of ways. And I think the gallery is sort of a community space that has a lot of safety to it. There's a lot of freedom of expression, and it's just an opportunity for people to really gather and come close around a common theme. I don't know if I exactly answered your question, but
No, you're
I think to me also, like, in my travels for work, because I travel a lot for work just through the different projects that I'm working on, I make a concerted effort that everywhere I go, I carve out time to go to a gallery. So for instance, I was in Omaha, Nebraska for a project. I don't know anything about Omaha, but I made sure I found 2 galleries to go to within my time there. I was in Madison, Wisconsin. I'm always going to find somewhere to go because I'm very interested to see how that curation differs from place to place, right? And interested in meeting those gallerists and seeing their perspective and potentially meeting the artists that they feature within there. I just kind of approach things with this free-flowing spirit in terms of what I want to see and what I want to kind of indulge in. But I definitely think, the galleries in general are a big part of this ecosystem, and I think they're necessary. I don't think, this world is becoming very digital, right? We're becoming less physically interactive, particularly in my generation, because I would say I'm the young person on this panel, right? Where I don't, even within my relationships now, like a lot of my friendships, a lot of them are digital, right? Like we don't necessarily see each other all the time, but I think there are places like galleries where we can kind of gather, talk, convene, that are safety places, and also just, a cultural experience for us all.
Excellent, thank you, Jasmine. And so, you're an artist. How hard was it to get into your first gallery?
I have to remember what my first gallery was.
And what went into the proposal to get your art into that gallery?
I don't know what was bringing my first gallery. I don't know. I don't remember. That's my range. I don't quite remember what my first gallery was, but what I can say is that I'm a relationships person. So, just kind of like seeing who exists, right? And a lot of my focus is, Black spaces, people of color. And so one of the first things that I did when I became active as an artist, because as you see, I graduated from Cracolina and then I went into education and all those things. But once I really returned to steady practice, one of the first things I did was research all of the African American owned galleries in the area. And from there, I just started checking them out.
Mhm.
And I go out in the community, and sometimes I can be very shy, and I might just like sit there for a while by myself and just look at the art. And I really am very intentional about observing, analyzing, temperature checking, and seeing who my people are.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so every gallery that I've engaged with up to today, there's kind of this deep familial connection that I feel with them. And that is kind of what I feel just naturally like creates the progression into showing there, because I truly like get to know them and what they're doing and what they're about, and listen and like observe the artists that they're showing, and the care and intention that they have for the work that they're showing, the artists that they are representing, and the care that goes into curating the show and installing and all of the components. And I think they also, the places where I show are just as intentional about getting to know who I am and getting to know what my work is about, and making sure that it's aligned. And so that's pretty much how I go about most things. I know it might sound like quite like whimsical, but I am a very like deeply spiritual and in tune person, and so I try to be like very discerning and intuitive when I'm moving through spaces, and make sure that those relationships feel genuine and wholesome, and then somehow, some way, it just naturally ends up maybe with my work on the wall.
Excellent, excellent. I like the fact that you said that you're discerning and that you're spiritual, because I find as an artist curator and someone that's studying arts and theology that you have to be intentional about where your work is being placed, because you want to make sure that the message that has been given to you is going to be conveyed to other people in the same narrative that, in my purview, the divine gives to you. So to hear that from you is vitally important, because our message from our people has to be given in such a way that doesn't always have to be palatable. It can be, it can be very raw and very intentional. So I enjoy that answer from you. Thank you, Jasmine. So with that being said, outside of your artwork, who is your favorite artist and why?
Oh no.
Yeah.
I have a lot of favorite artists. Okay, because Mr. Moody knows this one. That's one of the things that drew me to Mr. Moody's gallery, actually. I walked in and I saw a piece by Charlie Palmer. So I met Charlie when I was in undergrad at Kirkland University. He was teaching over at Morehouse, and regrettably, I did not get to take his acrylic painting class because it was full. But he did do a panel discussion for the art department, and so it was, a conglomerate of like students from Clark Atlanta, Morehouse, Spelman, and that was probably the first time for me that I ever met a Black artist or heard a Black artist speak about making art. And it was eye-opening for me. And I kind of like for a long time structured the way that I worked after Charlie. Just the way that he spoke about artwork, and then this like very strong work that is like deeply rooted in like African American history. It just like really did something for me, because I've like always been about that since I was a kid. I was always like the radical one. And so I would have to say, like, if I had to like choose a favorite artist or artist that has been most influential to my like trajectory, then it would be Charlie Palmer.
Thank you. Keith, same question. This is all gonna go on, so I want y'all to think.
Favorite?
Favorite artist and why?
Oh, boy. So mine's easy.
Okay.
The artist was someone who I met early on again in my old city days. And again, he was walking by. I met everyone who was walking by. And I'll tell you something I've learned, you put yourself where they'll walk by.
Mm-hmm.
It's very important. I didn't know in the beginning, but right now I know the best thing you can do is put yourself where you want to be seen, where they can walk by. But this artist walked by and again came back and he came in and he said, "Is this your place?" I said, "Yeah." I said, I introduced myself. I said, however long I'd been open, which was not even a year at that point. And he's looking around and he looks, he's like, "I like this." He's like, "I'm gonna work with you." I said, "Okay." I said, "Are you an artist?" He said, And somehow we got to talking, and he didn't tell me much about himself other than to give me his address, and he said, "Come by." And I did that, and we just immediately forged a bond. And you're so right about that. It's all about, and that's why many galleries can exist and many entities can exist, because they're all different and they all stem from whoever's creating it. And there's that pool. But this artist's name is Columbus Knox. And he's a Philadelphia-based artist. And the story with Columbus and me is really funny because, like I said, he came in, he said, "I'm gonna work with you." But I became his mentor in a way in the beginning. And then when he saw how my gallery was evolving, and everyone knew I was a jeweler, I just never really showed my stuff and this and that. Yeah. And he always said, he would tell me, he said, "You're not doing right by yourself." And he said, what you're doing for other artists, you need to do for yourself. And I had my jewelry at the gallery a little bit, but it was because of Columbus that I split my jewelry out of the gallery and I opened up a jewelry store on Rittenhouse Square, separate of the art gallery. And started just, like you said, you're in and out of artist studios, you're watching them evolve, you're having shows. And again, I was my number one client. So there was a time Columbus died suddenly in 1999.
Oh my goodness.
And he was doing the Rittenhouse Square show at that time. So in 1999, when he passed, those next 2 years, I did different retrospectives on him and different things. But then the next thing I knew, 15 years had passed. And I was selling an office building that had been my main space. And I remember when I went under contract to sell this building, I was like, "Damn, I got a lot of stuff around here. I need some months to move." So I remember this was in 2015. And that was the first time after 1990, 2010, how many years is that? From 1990? So 10?
35 years.
That's not 35, 25.
Yeah, no, 35.
10 or to
All right, wait.
Whatever it was. I've been out of school 30. 1990, yeah,
25 years. 25 years.
35 years.
So 25 years. So it was at that time that I started moving, and I literally was moving artwork out of everywhere. Like I had things wrapped and tucked, and and I had gotten into other things as well as the art. And I looked, and I remember I pulled out this one painting, this one piece. It was wrapped, and I unwrapped it, and it was a Knox piece. And I remember remembered when I was sitting in the studio with him, he said, "This is the one that's gonna open doors."
Mm,
And I was like, "Oh
divine
shit,
message.
this is, it's time."
Mm-hmm.
So I work with appraisers, I'm sure we all know. And Columbus has opened doors through auction that people don't even know.
Mm,
And I've gotten many of his pieces sold through auction.
mm-hmm.
Not just mine, but because I was his #1 dealer for those 10 years, I
Right.
knew who had what.
Right.
So there are people interested in letting their things go. And Swan was the main, Swan
Mhm,
Auction House in
mhm.
New York, main culprit. And I say culprit for a reason, because, so I answered your question.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
But I'm gonna add just a little.
Add some sauce to it. Go on.
Because Columbus would be salty with us all right now in ways that are very basic. And I think that what Columbus would want us to see and see more of, like, there's this push, everyone wants to be made more aware of African American art now, in my
Yes.
opinion.
Mm-hmm. However.
But there's a control on a process
Mm-hmm.
of how anything is sold.
Right.
And the entry level to that is not open and available to Black artists. So my main objective now is, you guys all know Faith Ringhold.
Mm-hmm.
I sat at Swan Gallery at an auction where one of her pieces was being sold. And she didn't own it. She was with a woman who actually owned it.
Mm-hmm.
It was in her private collection, and Faith was there just to showcase. That piece sold for $461,000 that day.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no reason,
That it couldn't have gone for higher.
not only that it couldn't have gone for higher, but all of our artists don't have that
Right.
opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
So the reason I say Columbus would be salty is because he was all about get it, get it, get it.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't want anyone to do it for him. Like, that's what his MO was. Like, and actually, if you wanted a piece of his and you didn't want to pay, you didn't get it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not,
Right.
there was no negotiating with him. So, that's a part of the legacy of Columbus Knox to me in our lifetime, in my lifetime. I'm really going to see our Black icons in fine art excel.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's my goal. That's my dream. So, and it's more than possible because it's happening.
Exactly.
A part of that though that's tricky too is because some of these pieces I've sold through auction, it's a bittersweet moment because you don't know who's the buyer, you don't know where it's going. But if you watch long enough, you'll see these pieces
Pop up.
surface.
Mm-hmm.
They've been introduced in private collections, and there's about 6 entities that have Knox paintings now that are very reputable.
Mm-hmm.
So when you think about establishing value for an artist,
Mm-hmm.
a big part of it is who aspires to collect their work as well.
Mm-hmm.
And that Rolodex that you can create. So that's my man, Columbus Knox.
Thank you. To the other lady of the panel, Stephanie.
My favorite?
Yes, your favorite.
I don't really have a favorite.
Okay.
I do enjoy, All Good Night.
Mm-hmm.
His depictions of Black women especially are very powerful and, large in stature, which I like. His depictions of women in the Caribbean doing everyday things is phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
And he usually does very large pieces. I'm enamored of Lisa Butler.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
mean, Lisa, I'll tell you a little story. Lisa, back when she was not known,
Mm-hmm.
and she was doing phenomenal work for fabric, for quilts.
Mm-hmm.
And she used to do the the art expo that October Gallery did, and I was in charge of the media and public relations. And camera people would come early in the morning, show me one piece that we can show on the new news, right? We had 200 artists in that resource center, right? And just in my mind's eye, from going all the way around and seeing people set up and talking to a few artists, but just in my mind's eye, what I liked out of anybody there was Visa. And I don't own a Visa. I wish I did. And I probably, you know, back then, this was 91 or so, 98, maybe 99.
Okay.
You know, camera people would come and they would say, bring me to a booth that I can shoot some B-roll and take it back to the studio and show it on the new news. 2 years in a row, I took them straight to Visa. And, you know, one day, during the expo, actually one night, I don't even know if they were doing a segment on the expo, but they ended the news with just an image of one of her quilts. I happened to be watching, well, I was watching to see if they were going to show anything from the expo that day. Because I knew a camera people were walking around. And they ended it with a image of one of Lisa's quilts.
Oh,
And,
wow.
you know, she used to do sort of smallish kind of quilts, but they were just so colorful, so wonderfully done. And just, there was nothing else like that anywhere. Not just because it was fabric, you know, the subject matter, just phenomenal work. And you can tell she put her heart and soul into it. You can see just by looking at it, right? She's a huge favorite of mine. Like I said, Paul Goodnight. Also, I have two Sam Bensons. He's an artist that in looking at his subject matter, you wouldn't know he's African American. I wouldn't know. You know, I had to learn about him. I believe he was also an art educator. And he did my Gay Head Cliffs, which is near and dear to my heart, which is over the piano. And he did the autumn scene over the sofa, which is near and dear to my heart because I'm from Boston and I like autumn and the change of seasons and fall, one of my favorite times of the year. That reminds me of taking drives up to New Hampshire and Vermont with my mom and my aunt, and we'd stop at little roadside basket places or somewhere to get maple syrup. And there's, you know, orange and red leaves. That's what that reminds me of. Like I said, I like what isn't here, right? Yes. But clearly, Sam Benson is a favorite now. I didn't grow up knowing about him.
Right.
I did see some of Paul's work. He has a studio in Boston. So I did see a lot of Paul's work as I was in Boston, right? And at some shows and things like that. But I would say those three, Paul and Sam and Visa, are three of my favorites. And the fact that I don't own a butler is not a problem for me because I know that one day I might, you know, I would be very lucky.
Mercer.
But you know, she does the kind of things that no one else is doing.
Right.
That's another thing. She's a female. She is very knowledgeable about and purposeful in her subject matter. Now, I'm not sure if that was the case years ago when she was an art teacher in Jersey. So, you know, the fact that she was teaching art as I was, I love that. And that she was able to do shows as well. You know, even though I have an art background and I've always been able to draw and paint. I mean, I was in second grade drawing my second grade teacher.
Right.
And it looked so much like her. And I wasn't shocked. It's like, of course it looks like her. Who else is it gonna look like? But ever since then, I have been that person that when you talk about art history, artists,
Mm-hmm.
I've always been knowledgeable about that because I've made myself knowledgeable. But those are my three favorites. And, I'm sure I'll have more as time goes on, you know, but those are my top three, I think.
Thank you. And finally, Dylan.
Yeah, this is a tough one for me.
Oh.
I can't say I have a favorite, so let me just run off some names for
Yeah,
y'all.
run off the names.
I think it's pretty standard to say Romare Bearden,
Mhm.
right? Jacob Rochester. There's some less known artists that I'm really into right now. I'm trying to get age. I'm show my dad eventually. But this young kid, his name is Anwar Mirza.
Mhm.
And he basically, you know, figurative artworks, acrylic on canvas. But what he always does with everything, it could be, you know, a single person, it could be a group scene. But what he always does is take it and then distort it, right? Which I really love that approach. There's other artists I like Jalil Nzinga, which I don't know if anybody's heard here. He's started off in graffiti, but and less so about his actual art, but the community he's been able to build around his art.
Mhm.
I think is really compelling. There's another artist by the name of Jason Boyd Kinsella, who now is like the David Warner representative, one of those type of people, but he basically is another kind of figurative kind of artist, but instead of painting that literal figure, right, which you would normally see, he then takes it into geometric shapes.
Mhm.
So he'll take that portrait and reinterpret it into spheres, triangles, and all these different shapes that are really compelling to me. Andrew Turner, I gotta shout him out, just because I know my dad has certainly collected quite a few. There's quite a few of those in my house as well. And I could probably say some more, but I'm gonna stop there.
Excellent.
It's just hard for me to really choose one, right? And I think also, I say my taste kind of flows with the seasons in a lot of ways, right? Like I feel like I have my few that will always be there, but then I'm always looking and searching for what's new and what may inspire me and what also is like kind of reminiscent of those greats and those key people and kind of takes that and I feel like their inspiration is from there, or I literally talk to them and know their inspiration is from there. And to see that interpretation, I think it also is fair to say like Basquiat, you know, also just is a special person in my heart as well. But yeah, that's kind of where I would go. But it's definitely impossible for me to choose one. It's kind of impossible for me to choose the top three.
Okay.
I kind of just, I don't know, I take it as I come. Basically, as I get exposed to things, I latch on to things. Some things fall out of favor, some things come back into favor for me. But those are just some few that I would list for me.
Thank you. This is a broad question for the whole panel. So you have $1 billion investor, right? I said $1 billion with a B. You have $1 billion investor, and he or she gives you the ability to create your utopian gallery. What would it look like in the 5 senses? Taste, smell, scent, touch, and visual. How would you curate that?
Is that for the whole?
That's for the whole panel. But if you would like to take the stab at it, go right on ahead.
I can jump in.
Go ahead, jump in.
I've been dreaming about this for a long time.
And the reason why I said billion is because we all know that art costs.
Yes.
And we want to make sure that we get the valuations that the artists deserve in creating this utopian gallery. So go ahead, Jacqueline.
So for me, this is inspired by a place that I was in. It was one of my first like credited shows where I aided my professor in Italy in installing the show in Gambatola, Italy. And from there, the way that that place was constructed, I would have a very large size industrial complex.
Okay.
And I would live on one side of it.
Okay.
And then on the opposite side of it would be this museum or gallery or museum with many galleries inside. And then in the center would be this like communal lecture, education space. And that is just, it's always been my dream ever since I saw an artist. And that space was a lot smaller, but you said $1 billion, so we had to go bigger.
Go big or go home.
Yeah, but he did that. He was living on one side of his studio, but wanted to give back to the community by portioning off a section of that for the arts. And that was where my professor had his solo show. But I'm very in love with like industrial spaces, and very frequently these days I'll just go on like Zillow or like realty.com or something, and I'll just look at industrial spaces around, and they're expensive.
Another reason for the billion.
Exactly, but they're so beautiful. I like all of the studio spaces that I've had, even my current one. It's very industrial. It was an old bike factory. PAFA is like a very industrial building. When I had my residency at Mass MoCA, it was a very industrial studio. And then even when I graduated from PAFA, it took me a long time to even go into another studio because it needed to be like perfect. Have that like industrial feel and the lighting be right, all of those like bar windows. And so for me, I love that. And I think that they just lend themselves so well to like art spaces. I love, you said the senses. I love the ambiance. Like when you're walking through the studio and just hear, like, it just echoes. And then, just the smell, like you said, the smell of like paint, that smell of like, oil paint or yeah, it almost is similar to like the smell of like new shoes. And then what would it taste like? I think the air would be like crisp, like industrial, like kind of cold. So you just have to fight with your landlord about the heat, turn the heat up a little bit. And then just like the feel and the site, like I said, industrial feel, like it needs to just have that crisp feeling, that like freshness. But that is what I would do with my $1 billion. And then I would get like the best artists I could afford.
Great answer. We actually have a similar wavelength on that utopian society.
Yes.
So, Keith.
I think I like the direction of that. So rather
and you guys could collaborate on
rather
this.
than create a whole new utopia,
Right.
piggyback on hers.
We can add to this utopian society
We'll
here.
add to it, but if we had $1 billion investment, it would be nice to make it sustainable. And if we wanted to make it something that you have to have some limits and boundaries. So let's just say it was the United States. I would have that in every state. And I would have a way where it was collaborative, because art isn't the same everywhere.
Right.
And shows could travel from one of these entities to the other. That's why I've gotten known for these pop-ups. It's like, it's more, if you're gonna wait for someone to come to you, that's one thing, but you can also go out there. So with $1 billion investment, we could create this in every state, and they could then cross-collateralize their artists and the things that were happening, and you start to build that whole community. And as people move in their lives, it would be nice to move from one state to another, but have a similar entity that you could still be a part of.
Excellent. Dylan and then Stephanie, and then we're going to start taking questions from the floor soon.
I'm definitely industrial, but I want to add something different. I'm a huge fan of Harlem Brownstones. So what I would probably do is combine 3 of them, right? Or maybe not knock down on the wall so there's one big space, but basically pick 3, whether it be they can be spread out or right next to each other, right? Because I also love the idea of going up floors. Like, to me, And also love the idea of it feeling like home,
Mhm.
as opposed to being like your typical gallery, white space, open. I
Right,
want it
right,
to feel like you're stepping into somebody's home, right? So that
Excellent.
you can sort of have these 3 brownstones, and each one could kind of be its own thing, right?
Mhm.
One could be straight for figurative, one could be straight for surrealism, one could be straight for abstract. But to me, it would definitely be a brownstone. Now, I don't know what it would smell like, taste like, feel like, but in terms, I mean, I know it would feel like it would feel like home,
Mhm.
right? Like, because I do feel like, you know, seeing art in the home is much different than seeing it in the gallery,
Yeah,
right?
most
Once you're able
definitely.
to bring it into your own space. But to me, it would definitely be a combination of some brownstones. Setting them up differently, I think that would be very good.
Excellent. Stephanie?
I don't know, I'm picturing, similar to what Keith said, having, is it $1 billion investment, having a kind of a pop-up, but a permanent pop-up in different areas of the country,
Mhm.
within the United States.
Mhm.
If there was more money, taking it elsewhere, but having round, enclosures. I like the
Ooh.
idea of infinity.
Circular, yeah.
I like the idea of clear story windows. You
Mhm.
know, clear story windows are?
Mhm.
So that they're not, so that the work does not get direct light, that the light is coming
Right,
in
right, right,
like a
right.
church.
Protective.
I like the fact of a sort of Sistine Chapel-ish
Ooh.
mural. I'm into murals. My daughter used to do
Yes.
murals with mural art. So, and then having the murals on the ceiling, maybe on some of the walls as well, but then having them there at a certain time and then bringing in other muralists
Mm.
to paint over it, because they're temporary,
Right.
you know? But in a building large enough for it to be, not terribly industrious. I know that's the way to go for a lot of people now,
Mhm.
but it's, for me, it's a little too, I like it more homey,
Okay.
but
So
still,
a happy medium.
yeah, a happy medium in between what you're
Dylan
saying and what you're saying.
Okay.
But in a sort of large, sort of a circular shape where you're continuing to go, around and
Gotcha.
not, no corners, you know.
Guggenheim, I was thinking the same thing.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. And that sounds like, and if somebody would pour money into that where it could be in different locations, and then the artists in those communities
Mhm.
would be the purveyors of
Excellent.
what's in there.
Mhm.
You know, whether
Excellent.
it's permanent, temporary, but also have a mural aspect of it too.
Love that.
Because the children in those areas, who like to paint on walls,
Mhm.
could
My
come
son.
in. They would come in and be taught. I mean, have space in there because it's large enough for it
Mhm.
to be sort of a teaching area as well.
Love it. First of all, I love this idea because it's actually something that I was thinking in my head, but I have one more piece to add that I think that we as a community have been reaching on and touching on that I think that would be very, very important is to have a mental health piece whereby people would be able to come in and have a space for art therapy as well as the teaching aspect, as well as the curated aspect, and have a place where you could have some food, so to speak, but the taste and see that the art is good in that respect. So that mental health piece would probably be a great addition as well. So one final thought from our panel, and then we're going to take questions from the floor. This is going to be a heart wrencher for all of you all. So be prepared. There is a fire. You have one piece to grab. What piece are you grabbing out of you? You it's a fire. You have only one piece to grab out of your collection. Which piece are you grabbing?
I'm grabbing it.
Okay.
I'm grabbing that. It's near and dear to my heart. No shade on anything else in my home.
No, I got you. I got you. Thank you.
I'm grabbing that. Thank you, Mercer.
I've thought about this a lot. Yeah. So I wouldn't grab anything. I'm just gonna keep upping my insurance. I wouldn't grab anything because I couldn't.
Right.
Upping my insurance.
Dylan?
Well, this is their collection, but I would say it's on display now in our gallery, the Tolliver, the Wood in the Well. I think, I love that piece, I think that would be the one I would say.
Okay, and our lovely artist?
As an artist, this is a lot more challenging. I would probably grab, there's a piece that I have that's called Let My Power Wedge Into Your Life. I showed it at Mr. Moody's, I think that was my first show. I would grab that piece because it's me and my sons, and we're standing on the ground of like all of my ancestors, like 8 generations back.
Oh, wow.
So, and that was like a big part of my like research and a lot of the research that I did to give my work to where it is today. So I would like hate to see that like burning. So I would have to take that one with me. I think that one is like one of the most deeply rooted, research-based, ancestral-based pieces that I have. So that one. I still have it right at the bottom of my stairs in my house.
Well, I want to thank you all so much because this has been such a wealth of information. It's been soulful talking to each one of you. You have brought such a warmth to this gallery space, this museum, as well as giving us just a piece of you in this moment. So I want to thank you, Jasmine, Stephanie, Dylan, and Keith for this moment in time in your world. And with that, we will take questions from the floor. Oh. Okay, so I will start from my right and then I will move on to you. Okay.
So I was listening and reflecting, and even before you talk about theology, this thought crossed my head is when we think about the churches being the last place where segregation exists, I feel like art galleries have that still going on. And even though there tends to be the opportunities, influxes to monetize in different spaces and places, and remember, we're artists who have melanated skin, but at the same time, there's the underlying culture that permeates that, right? So that feeds into maybe opposite of the segregation sort of aspect. Do you still see as artists, collectors, that it's important for us to maintain our African American experience thread through here, and that's what keeps our areas sort of separate, so those conversations can be broad and open and painful and honest, and that, or do you think that it's just one of the last areas that has not sort of broken the color line?
Well, as a person that is studying arts and theology and at a United Methodist seminary, I can say that I'm going to speak and say that it is very impactful that we maintain the fact that African American art is important, and that line the painful conversation has to happen. It always has to happen. And the reason why it has to happen is because we can't forget where we came from. We can't forget the people that have impacted us and the generations that came before us to give us the inspiration to create, to collect, to even want to curate the spaces for this art to be collected in and to showcase these artists that are taking the time and really doing those mind-heart connections and, you know, just putting their hearts out there. I mean, those are painful the painful conversations always have to happen, you know, because if you don't have those painful conversations, it's like, how do you know who your ancestors were and what they went through unless you have that conversation? How can you get and heal from the trauma of it being enslaved if you don't have that painful conversation? So as a person that is studying that on a wide scale, I say yes, we have to have that.
It's better to have, so.
It's better to have it.
Relevant to have.
It's still relevant, and especially in this political climate that we're living in, you can't neglect that.
Mhm. So my work is a survey of the entire African diaspora. So I travel around the diaspora into Liberia, Brazil, DR, Jamaica, you know, even parts of Mexico, looking to go to Ecuador, Guatemala, wherever the transatlantic slave trade touched. And what I find is that, and what I bring back to the work is that all of our experiences are both similar and very different. Slavery in the way that it existed in the United States, where we exist as African Americans, is completely different than the way that slavery existed in Brazil, for example, where slavery existed for longer. But still the impacts on the African diaspora community there was a lot different than it is here in America. The things that the governments taught the people in all of these different countries was vastly different. Whereas, you know, in Brazil, which is very near and dear to my heart, they were taught to get as close to whiteness as possible because that means that you're closer to God. Whereas in America, there was this kind of greater segregation and this kind of you aren't human because of your skin. And so in America, there was a different fight. There was a different fight for acceptance of self. There was a different fight for pride of who we are. And there was a bit of a larger resistance in a way that I believe spread across the diaspora and led, you know, similar to Haiti and similar to Jamaica.
Curation is important that historically represented folks have to really being able to curate those experiences lends itself to a more segregated gallery here.
So yes and no. So not to say that the gallery experience should be segregated.
That's the question.
Exactly. I think that they can all exist in the same gallery, right? I think it depends on the curator. I think if the curator's view is broad and they want to include all, you know, perspectives, whether that be all African diasporic perspectives or global perspectives, or whether they want to focus in on a specific culture. But I think that there's a place for all of them and all of it. I think there's a place for us all together. And I think there's also a place to celebrate diversity.
Okay, young lady.
Thank you guys so much. I came in on the end, not the end, I probably lost the beginning, so forgive me if my question has already been answered. So I just have, well, first I want to say, the words that I heard most was impact, like most repeated in a period of time that I was listening to myself. And I think that impact is essential. And I think that whether we're talking about African diasporic art or whether we're talking about what it means to be an artist, impact is essential, right? And so, forgive me, I don't remember my fellow artist's name.
Jaslyn.
Jaslyn, you know, when Jaslyn created her utopic art space, you included a gallery space, a showing space, sounds like you created a maker space, and you also created a residence space.
Mhm.
So you understood a certain amount of like, kind of, universe, like a very like inclusive and broad understanding of what the arts does. So when we talk about impact, it is true. It is like, you know, someone said earlier that, you know, not everyone has the same season, right? So the point is, if you hold near and dear all of the community, because you don't know who needs to continue to gestate in order for someone to emerge. So therefore, yes, we always have to continue to be very specific in terms of who and what we support. And it's not because it's a niche, it's not because it's the flavor du jour, but it's because it's essential to like building of our own cultural property. So my question is this, to your question around who's that billionaire, you guys all have these amazing utopic from the 3 brownstones that can, I actually prefer they connect, but like 4 in the same street, brownstone to the industrial space, to the whatever. My question is this, how do you encourage a billionaire investor? What is the ROI? Because we spoke about, there was a one conversation that's all about the value. When you said, someone said earlier that they were sitting next to someone whose work was being auctioned. What I know about that is that if the work is auctioned, it's secondary market. So the artist himself gets the celebrity of being sold for $1 billion.
Right.
So they don't get a percentage of that. They just get the thing that says that maybe the next piece is going to be worth it. So that ROI in the secondary market is very specific and not necessarily generative for the artist. Other than the idea of celebrity and like that. So how do you, my question to the panelists is, now you've got the $1 billion, you've given your proposal, you've given your floor plan. What do you communicate to them as their ROI without throwing the artists that you support under the bus?
Go ahead, Pete.
There's no $1 billion investor. So that's your first thing to realize. The $1 billion investment is us. And the way you see these things we talked about come to fruition.
No, sorry, there are huge property developers that create whole precincts. So I'm saying, when you have a property developer, let me be very specific to you.
Okay.
If you have a property developer that's creating a precinct, which is essentially what was being discussed. How do you communicate? I'm creating a precinct for artists. How do you serve the artist on the platter of that property developer and say, what is the ROI without throwing the artist under the bus?
You don't. That's what I'm getting at. There is no $1 billion investor for what we're talking about. If there were, they would have already surfaced. If there were a $1 billion investor, we would already be talking about the things they've been doing. There are many, many people who love art. And ideas come from collaborating. This conversation and my involvement in it is the importance of galleries in the industry and the ecosystem. I've been a philanthropist in every way as a gallery owner. I've invested in every possible way in my business and in the artists. And if you put 100 of me together, you've got $1 billion. And you do not have to explain an return.
Right.
Because it's in the living, it's in the knowing, it's in the challenge.
It's in the doing.
How do you get those?
Real estate.
How do you get
Real
those
estate.
individuals?
Owning real estate, having a location, doing what Skeet's doing,
Right.
pulling people out of the work. I gotta say, that's the perfect moment. And it's the perfect moment because, think about it, all of the unknown treasures in all of these African American collectors' homes, right? We're not talking about sales, we're talking about history and assets. It all exists right there. The coordination of it all, the sharing of it all is what needs to transpire now.
Mhm.
That's the educational piece of it all. We've been taught for so long, it's about the money. It's about the knowledge, it's about the education, it's about the power that you have through owning your own.
Mhm.
And to me, this room is probably more powerful than the Smithsonian Museum. You know why? You know why?
I know why.
You know why?
I know why.
Why?
Because this is ours.
That's right.
This is ours.
And the Smithsonian is being held captive. And all across our country, all around our world, we're being fed just enough to allow us to be kept in that realm. And I'm a true believer in that. The individuals of us all, we're doing it. It's finding them, coordinating the skill sets, bringing the things together. And again, this is the right time for this.
Indeed.
What I do not want to see happen, and this is an undercurrent that everybody out there is starting to talk about now, we're talking about getting our artists into places of recognition, for example, institutions, museums, things of all that, right? For as long as I can remember, museums have had budgets, museums have had endowments, museums have had fundraisers that yield millions and millions and millions of dollars, but yet they want us to donate our work to them for free. Because that's how we need to highlight our artists. Bullshit. Bullshit. We're at a fine line right now. And, you know, when you need to make that sale, it's a hard choice to stick to your guns and to not make that sale for the greater good. And I'm a proponent of, I have pieces right now that I would love to see in certain museums, but it's just something rubbing me the wrong way about having to donate it. So I don't know where all that's gonna go, but I know there's masses of people out there now, and the museums are playing broke. But they're buying through these secondary markets, the young woman just mentioned. And they're buying things that what they know is undervalued. And the secondary owner, that auction house, that's the gatekeeper we gotta eliminate or create our own.
Final question in the back.
So, my final question is, how do you guys think AI is
Ooh, great question. How is AI going to be playing into your work?
Oh.
They ain't gonna beat you up. They ain't gonna beat you up.
Oh my gosh. I don't know. I think it's difficult. I mean, I guess nowadays AI can do quite a lot. My work, I don't know. It's very, I think it's so deeply rooted in who I am and in ancestry and in these kind of African diasporic like syncretisms and Africanisms. I don't think AI has gotten there yet. I think it's like stealing people's work that's like more like realism and, there are some like figurative currents in the work, but it's so much, there's so much in there that like would be hard to replicate unless someone said like, be Jaslyn, and do a 8-generation research on Jaslyn's ancestry and the history of all components of the African diaspora and like the beadwork that was happening. There's so many layers to it that I haven't necessarily had to look out for AI too much yet, right? We never know what the iRobot can do.
But someone could take your images
And just say,
just
And do a thing.
maneuver
Yeah.
a few things.
yeah.
But I'm gonna tell you why that's not working.
But I'm not saying it's not, there isn't working. I'm saying this is what people are going to do.
But
And
here's why it's
are
not
doing
gonna
it.
matter, because they are doing and they will. We're art collectors, okay? We're not gathering images. All right, we're here for the story. Okay, Jaslyn has sat with us and she's enriched us, and I've known her for years and I've heard her story and seen her grow and develop. When I buy a piece of her work, when you buy a piece of her work, buy her work, that's what you're here for. Not just the image. Yes, the image is beautiful. When you walk through the gallery, the image will catch your attention. Okay? But when it's in your home years later, and when your friends are coming by to sit with you and have brunch and you're having mimosas and Jaslyn's on the wall, it's not some computer generated image, because there's nothing to talk about there. There's no conversation. Okay? But when you and I are having brunch in my dining room and we're looking at Jaslyn's piece, I'm telling her story as she's told it to me. Okay? And that applies to Misty Soul's work, to Destiny Crockett's work, to Ayanna V. Jackson's work. We're collectors. And what we're here for is to take in the stories and protect them so that they'll be here for future generations. That's what we do. And AI can't replace that. They can give us images, but they cannot give us the stories that relate to our history, our lives now and in the future. So thank you all for that very much. This has been great. I appreciate everybody coming. I want to make some acknowledgments. I'm really proud tonight because Rosalind Nickel, she had to leave. She had a long trip. Rosalind Nickel is the artist of the biggest piece in this show, and she's here tonight. Destiny Crockett is represented in the show. She's here tonight. Jasmine Sabri is represented in this exhibition. She's here tonight. There are like 6 or 8 people here from North Jersey, not the part of Jersey across the river where we can get there in 6 minutes, but like hour and a half, 2 hours away, have come to this talk, and I can't even tell you how much I appreciate you being here. This is so special that you would actually come out. It's cold as ass too. So the fact that you didn't just make the drive, but came out in the weather to support this. This is a new venture, and the MAAAC is going to be a really big thing. But right now, it's not. You're here because you're my friends, and you're here to support me, and I love you for it, and thank you very much for that. And unbeknownst to most of you, we did get to hear from international phenom artist Ayanna V. Jackson, who is a dear friend of mine. I told y'all I knew Ayanna V. Jackson. Nobody believed me. There she is. I told you. And she's here, complete surprise. Thank you so much for coming through. Like, this is what it's about. This is what we're doing. You know, we're art collectors. We hang out with artists. And even if you don't collect contemporary art like a lot of us do, some of us, you know, we like the Doc Trashes and the the old masters and the dead people too, because those stories have to be preserved, and carried forward, But to have the actual artist, Stephen C.W. Taylor, is in the room telling our story every day. If you're in this area, in fact, it doesn't matter if you're in this area, wherever you are, if you are mobile, get to Ubuntu Gallery, because that's where our stories are being told. I really just appreciate everybody being here, and thank you so much. If you have not signed the book, please do. If I have your email address, don't trouble yourself with that part. But put your name in there anyway, because I want to know who is here so that everybody can be thanked and acknowledged. There is a catalog. I ran out of catalogs. If you want a catalog, just reach out to me. I'll mail it to you. You can also go to MAAAC.org, MAAAC.org. You can access the digital catalog on the website, but I will send you a physical catalog if you want. I should have them printed by the end of the week. So, thanks again. There's some snacks. Grab some stuff on the way out. And I really appreciate you all. Be blessed. Thank you. Thank you. I know, like, I'm so glad you came. I know, it's a great job. Yeah, you did a great job. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. I knew you would. No surprise. No surprise. It is cool. So,
I love the concept. I love the concept. I mean, we have to use a better term than concept. I know that's not what you're using, but like, when you think about like, decentralized,
So right now we're decentralized, but we are going to. What do you think? Watch out, Michael.
we're here. We're getting there. I want something arachnoid for the one.
Oh yeah, okay, I like it.
You see, you got an elbow in it.
Oh.
But I like that. I want to
Yeah.
I'll get one.
Did we stop this? Are we still like barraging the internet with this?
Nice to meet you. I got it.